I'd like to call this Newman-Crows Landing Unified School District School Board meeting to order at 5:06. Okay. Okay. Let's see. May I please have a stand for the flag salute? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No, not anymore. Okay. We have nothing to report out from closed session at the present time. Public communication, agenda and non-agenda items. Any person wishing to comment on agenda and non-agenda items may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name. It would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes. California law prohibits the school board from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the board. Per board policy BB 9323, individual speakers may be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board may limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask the additional person speak only if they have something new to add. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Information discussion items. Recognition of retiree Sally Dickinson.
Oh, yeah, we have, unfortunately, Sally couldn't be here tonight, or Ms. Dixon couldn't be here tonight, but we have a plaque to, we'll make sure we get to her. She was a credentialed teacher for over 29 years, 7 here with Newman-Crows School District, exclusively at YOLO Middle School, where she worked with 6th grade students, helping them transition to that lovely transition from elementary to middle school. We certainly appreciate her service and have a plaque here I'll read. It says, "In appreciation for your lifelong dedication to education, for believing in students, for guiding through example, for inspiring with passion, for living through loving and leaving an indelible mark on the future, for touching the human soul. You have made all the difference." So we'll make sure that gets to her.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. Summer camp, Mrs. Henley.
Tonight, I'm excited to give a small glimpse of the joy staff and students experienced during summer camp this year. But first, I wanted to give a special thank you to Carolyn and her team for having breakfast and lunch served daily to all students at no cost to families. They did a fantastic job. At Von Renner, they had an average daily attendance of 167 students. Students enjoyed the hands-on activities, including the alpacas, Stanislaus County recycling programs, and robotics. At if we could go back one, Edward, thank you. At Barrington, students enjoyed fitness frenzy, hands-on activities as they explored science through a scientist's lens. Staff created various activities related to themes such as around the world, a trip back in time, ocean adventures, and space exploration. Students and staff at Barrington were very excited to be back 5 days a week. At Bonita, we had the opportunity to really individualize the learning for students. During our camping theme, students made s'mores out of an oven students constructed themselves, and it worked. They were all impressed with themselves. Mrs. Cope used a new interactive panel with her classes while students explored space, and they also built robotics out of Legos. We hosted 3 in-person field trips with World of Wonders, where students explored bubbles and made slime. Alpacas visited us during our safari theme. Students learned fun facts every day, practiced their writing, math, reading, science, and art skills, but didn't realize it because it was all fun, hands-on, project-based learning focused on what students were really interested in learning. Students built relationships with staff and their peers, especially when they were playing on our new play structure at Bonita. Hunt Elementary Tigers enjoyed science experiments, including making slime, building volcanoes, and learning about the world. Hunt students learned the importance of becoming superhero citizens as they learned through a variety of themes over the 4 weeks. The camp concluded with alpaca presentations, canine demonstrations, and letters delivered to local retirement communities written by Hunt students. At Yolo Middle School, 83 students participated, and they had an average of 60 students each week. Students had mindfulness, drones, wizardry, science, robotics, Lego art, model building, photography, physical activities, rockets, science experiments, and solar projects. YOLO had 20 days where everyone was able to rotate to different teachers and mix with different students to learn different skills and discover new interests. More importantly, new friendships were built and old friendships strengthened. Last but certainly not least, Orestimba High School, where 221 students were enrolled. There were quite a few courses that they were able to offer to students because of your support, which include credit recovery, English learner writing seminar, history of baseball, community service, make a difference, football athletic training, do-it-yourself arts and crafts projects, freshman jumpstart, girls basketball academy, health and fitness, history of basketball, multimedia drone academy, volleyball stats, AG pathway, animation and graphic design. On behalf of my colleagues and myself, thank you for allowing all of us an opportunity to build positive relationships with our students, families, and community during our 2021 summer camps. We couldn't do it without your help and support. Thank you.
Thank you. That looks like something everybody'd like to go to. Yeah, thank you. The 45-day budget revision, Mr. Oh, I checked it off. Right, back to school. Mr. Posey, or?
Yeah, so we have a little photo show for you from the Back to School Festival. Thank you, the board, for all being there. It was a great event. We did change the location this year due to some permit issues because of the timeline of getting a permit to do it on Main Street at the plaza. But we found that this location worked better for us. We were able to get more students registered because we could utilize the McConnell Center to do that. It worked out really nicely. We have a few changes maybe for next year, maybe moving the DJ to the apex of the two pathways so we can put those games as the center of attention. But if you just want to scroll through, and you can see the pictures, including an incredible administrative dance team that was phenomenal. I absolutely appreciate you all joining me and showing everybody I can't dance. And I want to take a moment to thank Mrs. Fox for all of her work and putting this together. And really, it's because of her that this went as well as it did. So I thought it was a good event. We're looking to keep it here again next year. And we were able to register a lot of students that we hadn't because it was here and we could use the inside network ability.
Mr. Posey, do we know approximately how many people attended?
We counted the ballots. We just don't know because you had the passports, but a lot of people just threw them away. There's no way of knowing. Perhaps one of the things on our Yeah, as a clicker. On our things to do next year is kind of a clicker, turnstile will be nice, but it's a little overkill. So we'll do a clicker and we'll be able to keep track.
It just.
We
seemed
know
like-
we gave out all the bags, or almost all of them. And we gave out 1,000 stickers. We only gave out to children, not necessarily students, but children. So we know we had about 1,000 children show up, but we don't know how many people. Yeah, she's ill today. I'll be handling the 45-day budget revision. So we've got we have received some revisions to our budget. Some what you have on the slide here are the increases, which is always good news. So the expanded learning opportunity grant increased about $785,000. This is money used to provide more access to the curriculum, more innovative ways to teach because of COVID, possible learning loss because of the shutdown. We had about $250,000 more in the A through G completion grant. That's money is to help high school students be college prep, career ready. Pre-K planning, you can see is about $100,000. Lottery went up a little bit, about $100,000. And then we've got a revised concentration grant as part of the budget. We have an increase of about $720,000 with these are designed to reach our socioeconomically disadvantaged students and the lower performing students. So we have some more money for that. And then the ESSR 3 is a multi-year. I think it has to be spent by 2023, and it's about $4.5 million increase. So our budget went up about $6.5 million, just under that. And then the decreases in the budget, or the decreases in expenditures, which again is always a good thing. Our workman's compensation rate dropped. We do a really good job getting people off workman's comp and back to work. So that helped. We saved a little bit of money there. Unemployment insurance dropped about $285,000. We did increase 2 certificated full-time equivalents in our independent study program. We had to hire a couple teachers, and that wasn't originally in the budget. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on that update. So our expenditures actually went down about $181,000, which means a realization between the drop of expenditures and the increase in income. Next slide is about 6.6. So you can see what the adopted versus revised was in both the expenditures and revenues. So we have about 6.6 more.
The COVID, are there any questions on the budget? Okay. Next we have is the COVID update. Mr. Smith or Mr.
I'm doing
Posey? Mr. Posey.
So the COVID-19 update, this is kind of a hot topic in the news, and I want to just try and talk to the board a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. And the Newman-Crows Landing Unified School District really has to follow the guidance from the County Department of Public Health, who gets their guidance from the State Department of Public Health. And I know there's been a lot of question as to whether or not students will mask in the classroom. The answer is yes. As of right now, they will. And it's not something that this board decides, or even as a district, we decide. It is handed down to us from the County Department of Public Health. If we were decide to say, doesn't matter, we're going to tell them they don't have to, it's with complete liability falling upon the district. The insurance groups won't cover $1 of that. And you'd be violating some Cal OSHA regulations. So we just simply can't. It's not, there's been some talk about, can boards, just say, no, we're not going to require a mask. We can't. So all students and staff will be required to wear a mask when indoors on a campus. Notice we don't have them on in here for a lot of the parts. We're not on a campus. We're at the McConnell Center. So if we're on a campus, then we would have to have it. So if you do visit sites, please bring a mask, and you will need to put it on when you enter a building. Outdoors, you're okay. You can take the mask off. And there is exceptions that are made during teaching when you would need to see mouth movement. So if you're teaching how to say oh, or ta, 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 you would have the students pull the mask down. The teacher can take the mask off, but only if they have a shield with the drape. in its place. So that's not an option, one or the other, like it used to be. You can't say, well, I'm going to use the shield and the drape instead of the mask, only if it has to do with instruction. Are you allowed that differentiation? So that's kind of a key component on the new guidelines. Wearing mask while outdoor, of course, is not required. And all the social distancing restrictions in the classrooms have been lifted. So we no longer have that rule where students have to be 6 feet apart or have shields. They've lifted those. I will say that these update themselves Wednesdays at 3:30 when we attend mitigation meetings. Mr. Smith is our representative there. And in the case of an outbreak, there is a really complex algorithm you'd have to follow if we say we had a positive COVID case on a site. And really what the algorithm is we pick up the phone, we call county health and just say, this is what we have. And they take us through it because it's ever changing. And there's such fine points that decide which way you go on the flow chart. It's better just to have somebody with the county health with you going, okay, this is what we're going to have to do. It's pretty easy with vaccinated. If the employee is vaccinated and it happens, it's symptoms or no symptoms. But when it's the unvaccinated, that tends to get a little complicated.
I actually have a comment to share as well, because this was part of a subject of a CSBA local delegates meeting that I was a part of, and the lobbyist that does the budget work and whatnot stepped in and said this, and she said, you know, it is law. And the crook at the back that we may find is that they could come after that ESSER 3 money. Not only the state money that the governor has put out, but they could come after that $4.5 million ESSER 3 money if we don't comply with the state mandates, which is masking. So, you know, he made the mention, and there's districts that were asking, well, you know, they said we can choose whether we enforce or not. And Cheryl Ide's answer back was, yeah, but you could lose all that money that you're looking at, you know, using to alleviate our problems over the next 3 years of getting these kids back on track. So that's a piece of information I want to pass on.
I had a parent ask me if their child forgot their mask, you know, left it on the bus or whatever. 2 things. One, do they have to wear it on the bus, the
Yes.
mask? And I told them yes. And the other one, do we have I know we did buy some masks. So if a child forgets, they can.
Yes, we do.
We're
We have
trying not
masks
to,
available.
but-
And it's really, originally when this guideline came out, if the student refused to wear a mask, they were to be removed from the education setting and placed in an alternative setting. They've lightened that up, and it's to be treated like we treat classroom disruptions. You know, we have the skills to teach through classroom disruptions and to redirect behavior. And we use the same skills as we would. And the state's done a really good job in helping us develop those skills over the past 3 years of open school, in really modifying how we treat disruptions. And so the inability to, or the refusal to wear a mask would be the same thing. We're just going to treat it like a disruption, and we'll handle it as such.
And that includes a parent that shows up at the school too. That's the other thing the parent asked, because she said she didn't believe in masks. And I said, there is the option of the independent study. She said, but I want them in the classroom. And I said, there are procedures for us to.
Yeah, so that parent contact would be one of the ways to handle classroom disruption. And if they're not wearing a mask and they refuse to, it would be eventually a parent contact. And if it's just not the right setting, it's not a local control issue, right? It's not a local decision. It's county and state, and we would have to find other alternative education if it came to that. But it's not the first step. It should never be the first step. We're going to educate and talk and redirect.
Next, we have some AB 104. These are all. Why do I keep checking off before I independent studies?
That's me too. I'm kind of talking a lot tonight.
This is, yeah. See, I did all my homework.
So independent study had an update that came through. I want to think it was about July 15th, and we need to have it in place by tonight, in fact. You have to pass some board policies tonight for the independent study. And one of the clear things is independent study, it's not really being updated for the purpose of the non-mask wear in the classroom. I want to make that clear, that it's really a reform to independent study. And it's happening at the time of the COVID-19 outbreak. And the COVID-19 outbreak certainly was a catalyst to these updates, but they're not going to go away. These requirements are not going to go away when we're out of the pandemic. That this is an effort to revamp independent study. So I want to be clear that independent study is not distance learning. Okay, the governor's clear. We're not doing distance learning. It needs to have the same rigor as its counterpart classes in the curriculum. The expectation is a student should be able to transition from independent study to in-person learning seamlessly. Maybe not the exact same letter for letter assignments, but certainly the same caliber of assignments, the same caliber of learning, and at the same pacing. So that if a student on Wednesday said, I don't want to be in independent study anymore, we have 5 days to get them back into in-person learning, and it should be seamless. That's the goal, the charge we've been given. Learning is really independent in independent study. That's why it has its first word. So they were given the assignments, they're giving very minimal instruction, and then left to complete the assignments and do their independent learning. At the K through 3 level, TK through 3 level, they get an hour of synchronous instruction a day and a check-in. At the 4 through 8 level, they get an hour a week with daily check-in. And the daily check-in does not have to be by a teacher. It can be just by a school employee. Hey, everything okay? You're able to get on and access the curriculum. And then at the 9 through 12 level, they get an hour a week with a teacher, and then no required check-ins. So that sets the minimums for what we're going to do. And we understand, as I hope you can appreciate, when given a completely new program to put into place in less than 3 weeks, to have it ready by Wednesday. We are certainly, to use a metaphor, building the ship as it's set in sail. So we will meet the minimums by Wednesday. Mrs. Bentoncourt has done an amazing job in working with Mr. Gonzalez, and we've got a program ready to go, but it's not what the final product's going to look like. We need to make that better than 1 hour a week for high school. And it certainly will be an ongoing process to strengthen that program. Again, it's here to stay. The rigor increase in independent study is not something that's going to go away when the pandemic leaves us. It's going to continue to be reformed. And we do have a policy, I think, coming up for a first read that actually has to be passed tonight, policy 6158, because it has to be in place before the first day of school. Yeah. Do you have any questions on?
Same CSBA meeting, we talked about this too. And one of the things that they were talking about is that this was clearing up a lot of problems that independent study has had. I mean, California has the entertainment industry, and that's one of those places where this has been used a lot. In the past, a child actor or something would get this, and it really fit poorly. And so some of these different check-in regimes and stuff are more about fixing long-term problems in independent study. So it looks like maybe we move and if we have students that are more appropriate to independent study, it should fix for them too.
There was a comment about testing, examinations, not testing. So if there's an exam, it has to be proctored by somebody else. It wouldn't be proctored by the parent, right? Would they come to school to do that?
That's correct. It would be proctored by a certificated staff. And I believe it can be done online, but it doesn't have to, Mr. Gonzalez, doesn't have to be in person, right? Yeah, but it is proctored. It's not by their parents or something like that.
And these are agreements or are more like a contract, correct?
Each student has to meet with the administrator, the parent, and the teacher and sign a contract with several initial points. where you understand that this is what it is. You understand that has to happen within the first 30 days. And that will happen.
Thank you. Okay, now I can, we have other ABs and AB 104 pupil instruction, retention, grade changes and exemption update. And then, so we have,
That's a separate item.
that's number 7, right?
Yeah. So AB 104 passed, and what it allows is for students, current juniors and seniors, basically to change any grade to a pass fail that they got last year. It has a very specific timeline. They have about 14 days to do that. And once the change happens, it can't be undone. So if they had a D in a class or a C in the class and it hurt their GPA and they want to change that to a pass where it would be GPA neutral, they could do that. UCs and CSUs, University of California and California State Universities, must accept the pass as completion of the course. They can't hold it against the students. Many of the private colleges are signing on as well. There's a list, but they're not required to. So this is very much a individual decision by the students. But here we end up with kind of an access issue. Is we don't want it just to be for students who are in the know, right? Who may have, for lack, who knew the law for some reason. So Mr. Pruitt and the staff are looking at every student's transcripts and seeing the ones who may benefit from such a change. And it doesn't just have to be for a lower grade. If you were valedictorian and got a B and that cost you your 4.0, a pass puts you back in 4.0, right? So, and have to make that careful. Student will have to make the decision, but advise them what their rights are. Advise them, if you do take the pass and you look to go to a private school that doesn't accept it, it could knock you out of those private schools. So you have to really make an informed decision on whether or not you would change that grade to a pass fail. Once it's done, it can't be undone as of now. The legislature would have to change the law if they were to allow a redo and let them change it back. But right now, the way the law is written, it can't be undone.
That's all right. Who was en route to be the valedictorian, stumbled in a class and got a B plus. They can erase that. A more, in my mind, more frequent probable situation is a kid that just barely passed some classes and saw their GPA suffer significantly in the last year, well, they can essentially undo that, and just put the passes in there, and the GPA essentially would stay whatever it was previous to this. I mean, if I guess the most extreme case, at least in my analysis, if you came in and said, I want everything to be a pass, I just want a bunch of passes, then you have no impact whatsoever on the GPA from whatever your previous GPA was. And that's either a good thing or a bad thing. And again, it's sort of a determination that has to be made individually for each child. And I'm just worried that with this short window, that so many families are going to hear about this at the end of this school year or some other time. And they're going to say to themselves, what? I could have gotten rid of that. You mean that C that was sitting there messing me up? I could have changed that. And so again, I think that we really have an obligation to communicate to the parents and the child or the students and say, hey, you've got a couple more days. Come in here and at least think about it. Think about what you want to do.
And what the learning directors of the high school have done or they're doing is they're pulling each kid's transcript and contacting the ones where there is that choice. I mean, some of them you're looking because there's no reason to change any of these grades, but for some of them you would bring them in and educate them on that.
Well,
Exactly that point.
let me just, I'm not arguing with you, but when you say there's no reason, if you got 5 A's, no, there's no reason to change it. If this was the very best you ever did in class and you've jumped your GPA up this year, there's no reason to change it, I guess. Although even then, I think there might be a reason, because if you had several A's and a couple B's, get rid of the B's, just use the A's. They'll pull your GPA up higher. And again, I think that in my mind, most kids would benefit with some, I'll call it manipulation, or at least they would benefit from knowing whether they should do it or not, as opposed to, well, my GPA is pretty good. I had an okay year. I'll just kill it this year. Well, that's a good philosophy, but this might be an advantage that you'll never have again. And you probably see where we went as a family, but this is something that I really think people have to think about. And I don't know, when you said there's 14 days, when does the last day? Do we even know? Was it 14 days from the, 17. So
6 days.
6 more days. Yeah, you got 6 more days to get in there and change your life for the good, or not. And Vern, I agree with you, except for the legislation specifically says that the college can't reject it, can't use it against you, can't. And I mean, you can say, well, oh, they'll probably do that. They'll probably still try to outsmart people, but there's nothing they've given in the way of information. So anyway.
Whatever works best for the kids.
That's right.
That's all I say, but pass, fail. I could have used it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I could too.
Inundate your legislators.
Yeah. Mr. Posey, Mr.
Go to them.
Pruitt, do you guys do you have any feeling about our students who, my daughter, Mr. Bazar's children, they've got some folks at home that have been through the college process. What about our students that are likely to be their first in their family? Have you guys any feelings about how those families are able to navigate through this, or is that not something you guys have gathered? As we're handing out the And while you're walking, thank you for taking a question you didn't know I was going to throw at you. So.
It's been a hot topic on campus because
Yeah.
there's some major parts to it. And one of the things is it's not, you correct me, but it's not a pass fail, it's a pass, no pass.
Right, that's right.
Gives averages in a 0. If you have any Fs, it eliminates it, does not count towards your GPA, anything. So one of the benefits right away is athletics. There's no such thing as ineligibility right now, because every F and D can now be a pass or no pass. So so it does that's one thing that I think it was an unintentional consequence, or but that is that. What we're doing is every student that gets their schedule, they get a copy of the law, a copy of their transcript, and the learning directors are pointing to them and say, here's your grades that are in play. They can see what their GPA is, and basically anything below that GPA is, they need to make a decision on that semester 1 and semester 2 grade from last year. So then the other part is they are giving up their time for the first week of going into all of our study hall classes and having those conversations with students as well, because we also know some kids did not come up to Warrior Roundup. They did not come to the back to school bash. They haven't necessarily been reading their parent squares. So they show up the first day and we have to get the information because they have to make a decision by the end of this week, really. So yes.
I'm going to add to Mr. Pruitt's. We've met with them twice now, the learning directors at the high school, on this very subject. And I was completely impressed with they are going beyond, they want the kids to reap the benefits, all kids to reap the benefits of this law. So
one way we're able to reach students is through their district email. Our learning directors do a mass mailer to them, so they do get responses that way. There's really no one way to communicate. It seems like one way is Parent Square, the other is social media, the other is through their emails, the others you have to drag them in and say, look, you need to see this. So we're using everything that we can.
So in the scenario, I think you might have made it, Mr. Wallace, for the student who maybe is the first one that's going to complete high school or something in the family, okay? The students are going to be making this decision because the parents really might not truly understand this or
right, but you still need to bring everybody in as much as possible to help
as much as possible. Okay.
So that's really where it's at. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the learning.
There's a second side to this, that is going to their college board, and their college board will show them what their A through G GPA is. So you also need to see how it affects that, because you can have a student that's say at a 2.8 for a UC. Well, you have to be at a 3.0, and a couple, a 0.2 may make a difference for that student being eligible to apply to goes to one of the UC. So they are looking at all of that. So
all right.
That means your staff is going to be busy the next 3 days.
yes, they are.
Really busy.
Good luck.
When you're almost 1,000 students and you're looking at 16 grades per student, that's a lot to look at. So,
Thank you for all that effort, and thank your staff, please.
Thank you very much for taking the question. And it's kind of nice to, I think that we're concentrating so much on social emotional learning, and getting kids eligible for sports means that whole coaching staff is going to be there as adults interested in that child and being there to be part of that social emotional network. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Next, we have first readings of BB 9250, which is rumination. We have reimbursement and other benefits, BP AR 5142.2, safe routes to school programs, BP and AR 3511.1, integrated waste management, policy 3515.3, school resource officers, BB 9100, organization, BP 1313, civility, BP 4112.8, 4212.8, 4312.8, employment of relatives, BP 5145. Hate motivated behavior, AR and BP 6158, independent study, BP 5145.12, search and seizure, BP and AR 5141.4, child abuse prevention and reporting, and BP AR 5141.52, suicide prevention. We've got a lot of reading to do, and check it out.
May I ask a question? How can we be doing a first reading and a second reading on the AR and BP 6158?
It would be a waiving the second reading for that, and then you would pass it. Yeah, it has a requirement that it has to be passed before the first day of instruction.
Next. Action items, consent calendar. The consent calendar items are routine in nature and usually do not require board discussion. Individual items may be removed by board members and presented for discussion and separate action. The consent calendar will be adopted by a roll call vote. May I have,
Yeah, I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Mr. Bizarre,
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst,
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly,
Aye.
Mr. Wallace,
Aye.
and Mrs. Conforti votes aye. Passes 5-0. Okay, accept Williams Settlement Uniform Complaint Report for April.
Mr. Smith will present that.
Mr. Smith,
President Conforti, members of the board, good evening. There is no complaints, nothing to report on that. So we have submitted that filing to the county with your approval.
thank you. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second? Okay, Mr. Bizarre, Mrs. Hurst,
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly,
Aye.
Mr. Wallace.
Aye.
And Mrs. Conforti votes aye, 5-0. Accept bond audit report. We have,
So you have a copy of the bond audit report. There are no findings from the auditors.
that sounds good. May I have a motion to accept the bond audit report?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bizarre,
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst,
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly, Mr. Wallace,
Aye.
and Mrs. Conforti votes aye, 5-0. Future agenda items, unaudited actuals will be on, textbook sufficiency resolution and public hearing, and presentation by YOLO Middle School, our first school for the new year. And Mr. Posey, do you have a report for us?
I do. Thank you. Very excited. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. we'll be welcoming back our staff and faculty. We're real excited to get our students back on campus and get some normalcy to a school year resuming. We are working on a transportation shortage right now. We're working through that. We're down to about less than 50% of our buses from first student because of a labor shortage caused by COVID. It's not the buses, it's the drivers. And it takes about 20 hours of one-on-one instruction to train a driver. They have several in the queue to be trained, and they're working as hard as they can to get them trained as fast as they can. But you can't really go faster than 20 hours of one-on-one behind the wheel. So we will be utilizing some vans to run routes and pick up students. But thanks to Mrs. Bencourt, we've worked really hard these last few days and Mendoza, yes.
Do you think we're covered or we don't know or?
We will be. Yeah, we worked out a deal with First Student where the drivers they have can drive the vans because they only have 8 passengers. It's just going to take a couple days to get them on board to do that. So more than likely, Mr. Smith, or myself will be driving some vans Wednesday morning.
What, yeah, I've had just a handful of parents ask questions about busing, and I honestly said they're working on it, and I understand they have van. And if you haven't been contacted, call, and if it's the first day of school and the bus doesn't show up, call again.
Call. Yeah,
So
we'll make sure every kid gets to school safely. They may not make the first bell, to be honest with you. We could use a fleet more of vans and a fleet more of drivers. But we have a plan that we'll get them, including running some buses on 2 or 3 routes. And First Student has been great to work with. They're working really closely with us. It's not anybody's fault except there's a labor shortage coming out of the pandemic. And that's what's causing it.
okay,
A little update on the pool, the community pool project. It's currently at the Department of State Architectures. Waiting for approval. Once it does, it'll go out to bid. When I talked to the architect, he said that construction will have to happen over a summer because of the amount of power that has to be cut because of the break-in of the utilities. So at earliest would be a fall winter opening of 2022. That would be the earliest because they will need to have some summer months to work on it. And then we did have a extended cabinet retreat. That was a couple of days. About everybody in the room was there. It was I enjoyed it. I don't know if they enjoyed listening to me, but I certainly enjoyed it. We worked on some team building. We worked on a lot of collaboration. about working together to solve problems. And it's easy to think of each site as its own silo, but we need to break down those natural silos and work as a district and as a team. So that was the main focus on those 2 days. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. Mr. Wallace?
Yeah, I noticed that we're now including meetings attended, so that got me thinking. I went to the Association of Stanislaus County School Boards, was last Friday, and we are working on our fall dinner. We're holding dates from September, October, and January, seeing what happens with Delta variant. But all of my peers and Ms. Fox, if you have stuff that you're interested in hearing about, I'm really pushing to get our fall dinner together because I feel like we as board members need a lot of training on how to deal with a lot of stuff that's coming before us. So we talked a little bit about in closed session that it would be nice to have some training. So if you guys have some topics, please let me know. If you have things, I'm also working on the budget since I'm the treasurer. So if you have things that you think the association should be doing for us, let me know. I can plan those into the budget options I present. We had the area CSBA delegates. We do that about once a month or every couple of weeks. And I shared some of that information that came back from that. And then today I did a webinar. It was Brokers of Experience. And today's was on social emotional learning. And in fact, County Superintendent Kuykendall was presenting their program that they have. They've basically got a computer check-in where every day you get on your phone and you rate yourself according to how you're feeling, and it gets a kickback right away. You know, if well, I'm really sad, you get a, hey, do you want to come talk to somebody? Here's numbers. We are doing the trauma-informed schools. And so anyway, there's some interesting things that are going on, but that was a very interesting program. If you're thinking about, you know, working on your skills and abilities, it was about an hour. It was 1 o'clock today, and they had 4 or 5 people. This topic was social emotional learning, but they're going to have some others of these topics coming along, and it was cool. I looked quite a bit. And then my only thing that I really want to cover, it was great being, but if you're an employee of the district and you're in contact with young students that don't have the option to vaccinate themselves, please get your vaccine. Just my personal request to you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Mr. Bizarre?
Well, after Mr. Pruitt got up there and mentioned the no pass, I was still sitting here thinking about that, and I had not thought about that before, but really it seems to me that nobody should take an F this last year. I can't conceive of why a student would not change an F into a not pass. Like you say, it would disqualify them from certain extracurricular activities and that kind of stuff. So again, I just say we should really urge students to get in there and change these grades, because now that I think about it, it seems like it would, nobody should have an F. That's all I can say. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bizarre. Mr. Snodderly?
All righty. Kudos to all you guys, superintendent on down that did back to school. It was great having it here. I thought, you know, a lot of people showed up. I was able to visit the high school this afternoon, kind of stealthy, walk around and see what's going on. Did notice that the building is gone. You know, I was thinking about buying a big rubber duck and maybe sitting out there in the dirt, you know, one of them giant balloon things. It was nice to see all the football players out there. You know, it gives you a good feeling that school's about ready to open and they're out there practicing and they were working very hard. You know, the campus looked very clean and good and ready to go. You know, yeah, I'm looking forward to a new school year. I don't know where COVID is going to take us come September, October. We're just going to be flexible, you know, and I'm looking forward to the back to school nights that are coming up. I haven't been in the schools in 2 years. We haven't been in there. I haven't been in the new science building in yellow. So I'll fire up my scooter and head for that building. I want to look inside there and see what's going on. But, you know, I commend all of you. It's, you know, it sounds like you're ready to unlock the doors and get back to business. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Mrs. Hurst?
Okay, I too want to say kudos. Summer camps, I had the opportunity every day to deliver meals to our senior citizens. So I get to go past two of the schools and I was able to watch some of the excitement of the youngsters and the families, you know, so it was good for that. Back to school was great. I kind of wrote down book, student, staff, parents, book, student, staff, parents. Anyway, being able to give out those books was just absolutely marvelous at our board little booth. However, watching all the principals, Macarena, you know, chicken dance, sprinkler, lawnmower, etc. I did really, really, really enjoy that. Okay. The negative thing that I'm going to say right now, though, okay, which you usually don't hear very many negative things from me, is that I really would have appreciated to have seen someone from the newspaper here this evening, because we covered a lot of really important things that should have gotten in there. And I know they will be presented to them, but it would have been nice to see a reporter here because we thought we were going to lose it. We kept it. And so maybe they'll be here next month. Okay. So otherwise, have a great year.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a challenging year and Mr. Posey coming on just in July, and he has kept us very well informed, and it looks like he's getting his feet not even wet. They're getting drenched and that. And we constantly are emailing him or calling him, but thank you, staff. And if you need us, please text us, give us a buzz, whatever. You will see me early. The first bus at Diablo is 6:15 a.m. and I will be at Bonita School, and then I hope to get to all your schools in the first 2 days. So thank you and have a great year. You know, we're looking forward to it, and take care of our students, please. Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Have a good night. Adjourn and